Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As the title suggests, today we are talking about 10 more books that I feel like I probably should have read by now. If you haven't already checked out the first video like this, I will put it in the iCard up here, I believe it is. Basically, the way that this works is I list off 10 books that I feel like I probably should have read by now, either because everyone in the world has read it and I'm interested in reading it, or because I've told myself I would read it and I just haven't for whatever reason. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. The first book I feel like I probably should have read by now is actually a book I don't have on my shelves, and that is The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. I feel like I kind of know a lot of what's in The Selfish Gene because I did an animal behavior course in my undergrad degree, and I did hear from other students in the class who had read the book as recommended reading that the course material was very closely resembling The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. So that's pretty interesting. It's a cool sciencey book that I think I'm going to really enjoy since I really enjoy Richard Dawkins' writing style. Next up, we've got a book that I keep saying I'm going to read and still haven't. And in all honesty, I just want to read a book by this author. It doesn't even have to be this book, but that book is Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. I've heard amazing things about this book. I said that I would read this one because it was the first one that I was able to find secondhand in my town, basically, but I think I'll actually read this after reading one of his shorter works because I think the length of this is something that's making me a little bit worried about reading a Murakami book. But it is a huge goal of mine in 2020 to read at least one Murakami book, and I think I'm actually going to start with Norwegian Wood. So if you've read it before, or if you've read Kafka or anything else by Murakami, let me know what your thoughts are on him as an author in the comments below, because I've heard great things, but I'm still a little bit intimidated. The next book on this list is American Gods by Neil Gaiman, and in fact, Neil Gaiman has another book on this list, and that is Stardust. Stardust was a book that I started reading once and never finished, and I'd really, really like to, and American Gods is a book that I've heard a ton about and have never read. I've read Anansi Boys, which apparently is somewhat related or similar subject matter to American Gods, but I haven't actually read American Gods. I love Neil Gaiman's writing. I feel like I should probably get to reading this and Stardust sooner rather than later. For the fifth book of this list, I'm going to say I really need to get to reading The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. First of all, this book is just plain gorgeous. I love it. Second of all, I got it from Book Outlet in I think my first ever Book Outlet haul, which was quite a while ago, so I really need to read it. I have had some serious desires in the last year to read this book, and for some reason every time I'm like, yeah, I feel like reading The Nightingale, something gets in the way and I just don't end up picking it up. So I feel like I really need to start reading this because I am in the mood for historical fiction. Next up, we've got a book that I've been hearing a lot about lately in the fantasy realm, and that is The Golden Compass, book one of the His Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. I've heard so many good things about this. I've heard so many people have read this, and it's like a staple in the fantasy community, and I just haven't read it yet. So you know what? It's happening. I'm eventually, at some point, going to read The Golden Compass, probably in the next year. I keep saying I'm going to read all these books in 2020. I just really hope at the end of 2020 I'm not making a video like this with some of these books still on this list because, oof. Seventh book on this list is a book that I actually am pretty sure I stole this from my brother. It's just been around on my shelves for forever, and it's terrifying because it's literally over 1,000 pages long. It's not one single story, it's a collection of stories, but still. What I'm talking about is the Sherlock Holmes stories. This is volume 1, and that's of course by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. These are classic, and I love every movie or show I've ever watched about Sherlock Holmes, and I don't know why I haven't picked this up. I think I tried to pick it up when I was younger, like maybe like 12, and I was like, this is boring. No, I don't want to do this. But I'm older now, and I can probably handle this a little bit better than when I was 12. I don't know, that's just me maybe. But I really, really want to read the Sherlock Holmes stories, and I feel like this is a good one for like reading a story and then putting it down and like maybe finishing it over like 6 months, who cares? I think I could have a lot of fun by reading this book. So Sherlock Holmes, you are something I seriously need to get to soon. Next book on the list is a book that I do not have with me, but it's a book that my friend listened to, I think, on audiobook, and has completely intrigued me and made me want to read or listen to, and that is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. I've heard that this is a nice quick audiobook to listen to, that it's narrated by the author, Trevor Noah, and he's also a really funny guy and I really like his work, so I definitely want to kind of see what his life story is all about. It's an autobiography, if you didn't know. And so I'm really interested to see kind of what his life story is about and just enjoy a book with hopefully a little bit of his brand of humor and a lot of heart. That's what it sounds like it's going to be. So pretty excited for that. Next up on the list is a book that I actually started reading in high school. Do you guys remember the days? I don't know if they still do this, but Goodreads used to have links to open source books that you could download like an ebook copy of something, and it was mostly like classics and stuff. And I started reading this book on my phone when I was in high school. Like I just lie in bed and read it on my phone, and I never finished it, probably because reading on my phone was like really annoying. But what I'm talking about is Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I was really enjoying this book, but again, I think I stopped because it was hard to read it on my phone. So I really want to read this, and then I really want to try reading it in Italian. So when I went to Europe this past fall, I guess it was, late summer, fall, while I was in Sicily, I went into a bookstore and I tried to pick up an Italian copy of a book that I had at home. I wanted it to be something that was not super long, something that I knew I would enjoy, and I was like, hey, I have The Picture of Dorian Gray at home. I was really enjoying that. I should buy this in Italian, and that'll be an incentive for me to read the English version and then try and read the Italian version. I don't speak Italian, just by the way. I devised this whole plan to help me learn to speak Italian. My mom speaks Italian though, so hopefully she can help me with some of the words. We'll see. Last book on this list is not a book at all. It's actually any book by a certain author, and I'm terrified by this author. The author I'm talking about is Stephen King. I want to read a Stephen King book. Mostly the reason why I haven't yet is because he writes a lot of horror, and I don't like horror books. I don't like to be scared by my books. I don't want to be staying up at night. I know a lot of his books have themes and subject matter that kind of like freaks me out a little bit, makes me uncomfortable, so that's a big reason why I've kind of stayed away. And then also a lot of his books are just really long, so I'm kind of afraid of them from that sense. But I feel like Stephen King is just, he's one of those authors that's so prolific and he's so big that I'm interested, like I'm curious what his writing style is like and like how he writes so much, because it seems like he's coming out with like an award-winning novel every year nowadays. So I don't know. I really want to see what Stephen King is all about, so I'm going to look for some kind of Stephen King book that is interesting to me and won't freak me out too bad. If you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. Anyways, guys, those are 10 more books that I have not read yet and feel like I probably should have. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have read a lot of these books. If so, let me know your spoiler-free thoughts on them. I'd love to hear it. Also, if you think there's a book here or an author that I should prioritize, let me know, because I'm very interested in getting into some of these early in the new year. If you guys enjoyed this video, do not hesitate to like and subscribe for future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.